All right, so we're back here in Oxford Mills. I decided to take a little tour of the field over here. When we started building this place, it was a real concern about the water. There's an old creek that comes through here, and it was carrying a lot of water. This place was completely saturated all through spring, but we're in the dog days of August right now, and it is bone dry. There's a little bit of water at the back over there. Obviously a major concern. We're going to install septic. Septic systems and water don't mix well together by design, so it's great that this is all nice and dry. Grasshoppers are obviously all around. There's a frog. I want to take you through and show you a few details we've been working on here. So we met with our Hardy rep. Kyle was recommending a few different details. So one of the things we want to talk about too is at the front, we have a gable situation. We have a few different siding details. Some of this stuff is lap, some of it's shingle, and some of it's board and batten. There's a few different ways that they interact that are interesting that we have to deal with. So I want to talk a bit about that. We've wrapped up roughing on the inside. Insulation spray foam is going to start tomorrow. We've already started all our poly, finishing up our attics, and the tunnels are done. So I want to show you that as well. So let me take you to the front here, and I'm going to show you some of the siding details and things we've kind of worked out and figured out here. Oh. Oh, okay. So we're up here at the front of the house. There is board and batten going on here, and then we're on a gable, and on the gable top, it's a Hardy shake that's going up there. It presents an interesting situation because Hardy on board and batten needs to be strapped, but on shake it does not. There's an issue with bringing everything into the correct plane and making sure that everything overlaps properly. So on the bottom here, we're gonna have 2 inches of foam stick out, and then we have a concrete product that goes on the face of that. And so there's a drip edge that comes up and ties into here. You can see we've left our boards a little bit short to deal with that. There's a freeze board on the bottom, which is just a trim board. There's a bunch of different names for that, but it's a trim here. And then our board and batten. Let me see if I can draw this. This is our Sega, which is right here. We have our strapping. We have our board and batten panel. We have our actual battens on top of that. At the bottom, our trim actually sits on the face of the panels, which helps bring it out to the correct plane. If we were to sit it directly on the strapping or the Sega, it would sit too far behind and would actually be behind the face of the batten. So we want them to line up, which is why we bring it all to the face. Now on the windows here, we have a brick mold, which is a trim that goes around the outside of the window. It's integral to the window. It's not something we add afterwards, but we're also adding another piece of Hardy trim on the outside for a more pronounced look. We have our trim right here, and so that also goes on the face of the Hardy panel to make sure that it all sits in the same plane. But when we get to the top, there's a freeze board, again, another little trim board that goes along the top of the gable. And then from there, we have to create a drip edge, another drip edge, the way we did at the bottom here. So between all that, if we sit this too far forward, then by the time we have our shakes that sit like this, they're actually gonna sit proud of the freeze board, which is no good, because then you'll just see the bottom of the piece of siding, which isn't a very pleasant look. So what we're actually gonna do is not strap the top and push all this back so it actually sits about an inch behind. So there'll be a stepped face in that situation, and make sure that we have a good trim detail and we get good water drainage. So these are the kind of details we have to work out. Obviously when you draw a picture, it's great, it works well. We understand the thicknesses, but getting on site and understanding the exact details that we want to commit to is very important. We always try to work these at a time, but sometimes it just takes a good visual on site to work these out. So this is all stuff we worked with Kyle, our Hardy rep, last week. Seems like a good way forward. He's actually presenting a site-specific installation manual, which is fantastic. I can't stress how great the people at Hardy are with product support, knowledge, everything like that. They've come out here to the middle of Oxford Mills just to help us with that, and we're very grateful for their help, so thanks, Kyle. We're gonna be installing this early next week. Windows are being delivered on Monday. We're gonna pop those in, and then we're gonna get going on the siding. So we need to strap around here. You can see we've already marked out all our strapping, and this strapping is actually exactly in line with the stud behind it, so that when we use our 3-inch nails, it goes right through and catches the stud. Shear strength is obviously an issue, but we don't want to be just relying on the sheathing to be holding up all of the siding. So that's why we fire through, and then we use our ring shank nails on our strapping to install our Hardy. It gives us a really great bond. It's gonna last. So that in a nutshell is everything we're doing for the siding. We've already done all of our soffit. Our fascia is gonna be installed probably starting tomorrow. We have a couple little details to finish up inside, and then the boys are all coming outside to do it here. These kinds of details, all the things we're working through, are really important, and we really find an advantage for us to do the install rather than starting to subcontract it out. It does create more labor demand for us, but at the same time, it allows us to guarantee quality, ensure that these little details are worked out, and that we're delivering a quality product to our client that we're expected to. It's very easy to make these kinds of little mistakes if we're not 100% in tune. and we don't want to have a subcontractor back charging us for this. So we want to make sure that we get these right the first time, and that involves bringing Urbacity staff who are knowledgeable and have the expertise, and getting the training from Hardy as well to make sure that we have everything exactly the way we want it and not cutting any corners. I want to take you inside and show you some more of that. Let's go. So one of the things we do at night, just to ensure site security, is we board up any mechanical rooms or mechanical chases. We do have security cameras on site, a few of them, but it's obviously always a concern that you can't get here in time, and it's the middle of the night, you might not notice the alert on your phone. So we always just board them up with a piece of plywood or OSB. This is one of the secondary utility closets we've created. We always find it advantageous to paint beforehand. We'll let our painters do the final touch-ups, and obviously we need to clean up the pipe a little bit here because the boys were a little bit ambitious in their painting skills. Should have been a little bit more careful, but we'll get this cleaned up. Right here we have our manifold from Upinar. They're a great manifold, so we're coming out on this wall here. Turns out that these came out in a little bit longer. We didn't have the right dimension, so we've had to switch it to the wall. Not a huge deal. We're just going to extend these pipes up and connect the supplies and returns over here. And then we have an electrical panel that goes in here as well. This is going to power this whole side of the house and make sure that we have adequate power. We're not running our home runs all the way across the house. It is quite a large house, so we want to make sure that we're kind of minimizing the amount of wire we use. And also having 200 panels over on the other side of the house just doesn't make any sense. So that's going here as well. These are our thermostat lines. Everything's zoned. There's 4 zones in the house, and we want to make sure that we have thermostats in the right spaces. So the bedroom zone can be at a different temperature than the kitchen zone, for example. People like to have that kind of control. So we have them all tied in here. Happens to be right here. This is this is actually the thermostat controller, and they'll all be tied into the manifold over here. So there'll be passive sensors and active thermostats, and some of them are a combo of the both. So that's what we're doing over here. So really happy with how this is going. Got all our poly in. You can kind of see all of our stuff above there. We've got all our pot lights roughed in, smoke alarms. All our vents have been hooked up as well. You can kind of see the tunnels a little bit. I'll take you up there in a minute. We'll show you the tunnels. Have all been created. So you can see the pipes are just loose in the attic right there. Obviously not a good thing in normal circumstances, but what we've done is actually cover that whole thing in OSB. So it goes up and over all the way, and our supply and return ducts are all covered. And so GNR Insulation is going to be spraying all of those tunnels with 2 inches of spray foam and then burying the whole thing in R60 cellulose. So the 2 inches of spray foam is to get our vapor barrier, and then the R60 is obviously for insulation. But it creates an opportunity for passive airflow through there. We have them open in a bunch of locations so air can circulate properly, and that's going to allow us to make sure that that stuff does not freeze in the winter, stays properly warm, and made it a lot easier than trying to get everything under the slab. That would have cost a fortune. So obviously not the right idea. Framing's all buttoned up. We've got all our ladder backing in for all our walls. Everything's tied up. Everything's true, level, and straight, which means insulation's going to start tomorrow. Now we are doing R30 in all the exterior walls, and we have our R5 insulation already continuous throughout that's adhered to the back of the exterior sheathing. So we have an opportunity there to get R30 plus 5, which is very good, especially in this climate. Doesn't get much worse than that. So I'm quite happy with that. So they're going to be doing spray foam on all the exterior walls. And then there's a good few spots where we have some ceilings that need to be sprayed as well. So over here in the laundry room, for example, it's a low slope roof. We have an opportunity to get R50 up there. So we're going to be spraying into here. And then the little details are important. So we'll be tying into this vapor barrier on this side here with the spray foam to make sure that we have everything licked properly and we have our continuous vapor barrier. We're here in the laundry room. Everything's roughed in, ready to go. Washer box set. It's rare to see a builder that doesn't have a washer box these days. It's a nice detail to have. Very straightforward to do. Our dryer exhaust fan, ready to go. Everything's hooked up to the HRV and the heat pump right now, so we're great there. And then we made a last minute change. The client decided to have all of his networking cable inside the laundry room rather than that utility closet. It was a little bit tight and he was worried about having enough space, so everything's been brought into here. There's a cabinet planned for right here, so we're just modifying the size, and then this will all go in there as well. We have a couple of pieces of backing to put in for that, but for the most part, we're pretty much wrapped up here. The boys have been working all day on strapping and final touch-ups. We have a bit of backing left to do. If you haven't seen our Instagram posts, it's got 140,000 views right now. I don't know what we did, but it worked out really well. Check out all the backing we've been doing in this house. Our fireplace is already installed, actually. It's just an electric one, but it's great to get it installed, hooked up, tested, make sure it's running properly and properly tied in, because we don't want to be ripping the drywall out afterwards. Over in the kitchen, we did our 3rd, 4th, 5th check to make sure that all our backing is put in the proper locations, double checked all the measurements. Under cabinet lighting, is important. So we make sure we find those exact locations. This is how we do it. I know there's other guys that do it differently, whatever works for you. As long as you have it in the right spot, because the drywallers will never know. It's really also important to make sure that you're taping around your vents. I know this is something that gets missed a lot in build, but taping around your vents to make sure you have good air tightness around all of your poly is really, really important. So great marks for GNR over there. The rest of the week is spray foam insulation. Drywall starting on Monday. Like I said, the windows are coming in on Monday as well. We might have to poly the windows depending on the weather, but the plan is in the next 2 weeks to have all the exterior finished and be finished drywall, so we can come in here, start on flooring, start on trim, start on doors, start on tile, and really starting to wrap this place up. It's mid-August now. If everything goes to plan, we're still gonna be out of here by Christmas and on to the next one. So we just gotta keep the momentum up. Next few weeks are critical. In construction, there's always kind of a crunch time between foundation finishing and framing. You're trying to backfill, you're trying to get utilities in, all that stuff like that. Framing obviously is the only thing that can be done on site during that time, because you can't do roughing because you don't have any walls yet. There's another crunch time right now where between insulation and drywall, you have to take your time, make sure you have everything correct, but making sure you can turn that over and not get stuck with, oops, I missed that, oops, I gotta run that wire, oops, I gotta do this. Making sure that's all tied up. So next few weeks are critical, and then obviously everybody knows crunch time at the end is always critical as well, making sure all the little tiny details get covered off. So we're just trying to push through these this week and next week, and then this job will be on the home stretch for sure. Anyway, that's all I have today. See you next time.